So this generator came in where when you start it up, it will run, but when you go to shut it down, it won't shut down. So let's go ahead and show what's going on. So turn on the choke, and then pull start it. Take it out of a choke, so it's running. That should go solid, so everything's good. But now when I go to turn this off, it doesn't want to stop. There you go. Whoop. Wow, it's really not wanting to stop. All right, well the fuel valve, that's a fuel valve also, so I'm just gonna have to let it die. What we're gonna do is we're gonna open up the front panel. I wanna see the switch. I need to get a screwdriver. So I can pull this off. And then let's pull these off. Thing should die any second. I'm not sure if it's under here is where the switch is going to be. No, it's going to be behind. So let's set this back on. Oh, almost dead. I'm going to put one of these back on just to hold this front panel down. It's actually behind this one. So I'm going to pinch the fuel line to start it. It should turn off though. Oh, so, okay, finally it shut down. So we need to remove this side panel too. There's a little bit more to this. And by the way, this is a brand new generator. And these screws are all the same, except for ones that just came off of this. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so we have wires coming out. So it does go into, so you can see that there's a fuel valve right there. And then in here,
linkage. I see the linkage.
Yeah, so
I see that linkage right
we need
there.
to pull this
Not a linkage.
linkage. Okay, so in here, this is the wire that's coming in here for the kill circuit. So that goes in. Where is it? Okay, and then it goes down to the harness. So let's disconnect this and then reconnect it and see if that is potentially the issue, because it looks like it's just a switch. So actually, before we do that, let's check continuity on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push this back on there. All it is there's a little round part there to key it. So it's all the way up. And then I'm gonna check continuity. So with a switch, it's just on off. So you either have continuity or you don't have continuity. Normally, when you have continuity, it's basically tying the primary of the coil to ground to kill spark. So, all right, so now, question is which side is going to the switch? So this one here is going up to the switch. So right now, it's kind of a pain. Yeah, it's a little bit of a pain. So hold one there. So right now I don't get continuity. So if I turn that, I still don't get continuity. So what I want to try is grab a couple alligator clips. Let's see if we can even connect to it.
Need some pin headers.
Yeah.
Sell, those pin headers, you can buy whole rows on Amazon, and then you can jam them into sockets and stuff.
That would make it a lot easier.
Like like for like IDE cables and stuff.
Yep.
Rows of pins, you can buy those.
So I gotta make sure these aren't touching like so. Unfortunately, it seems like this is a little bit wide. Only thing I can think of is jam or put a little piece of paper in between. Let me.
You need different clips. You need your test clips.
Yeah.
Radio Shack test clips from the 90s. Need to be replaced.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's grab some scissors here. I'm gonna do a little sliver of paper down in there just to insulate. Hopefully. There we go. So now I should be able to connect this one onto there, like so. Okay, so now, see now it seems like it's working.
The switch works. Could be a bad coil.
Yeah, so, okay, so we know the switch works and it's working consistently. So I'm gonna plug it back in. What I'm hoping is it was just a bad connection, but we'll find out. Okay, so it's making good contact there. All right. Don't want to pull on all of that. So in fact, I'm gonna set this back up with that in there like so. We'll put one screw in here just to make sure, or hold that in place. Because when this generator energizes, I don't want to touch the back end of the electrical outlet, because otherwise I might be a little excited. Okay, so now we'll set this back on. There we go. Make sure we don't lose those. All right, so we're in the run position. I'm gonna move it to choke. Now we're in the run. Okay, so it seems like it's actually not the switch, it's something further down. So, yeah, or it, so sometimes on some of these, it all goes to the inverter, and then the inverter sends out that signal within the circuitry. But yeah, it could be the coil, because normally that's where it goes, but I've seen it on some of the inverters. Yeah, okay, so unfortunately, this thing's gonna run until... The reason why I'm pulling here versus out here, I don't want to be putting all kinds of dents and stuff in their plastics. And I don't want to pull that out all the way while it's running, but I'm just gonna have to, actually, you know what, if I pull this side, and yeah, some people are probably saying, oh yeah, you could just choke it out. Yeah, actually. There we go. Okay, so now the question is, where does that lead go? So it ties into this harness here, which then goes to this coil. Oh, and I found the problem.
Isn't that plugged in?
All right, so let me set it how it was.
All the way over here.
Here, I'll turn this, make it easier so you can see. But basically, this is the kill signal to the coil, and what you do is when you ground this out, it grounds out the primary of the coil so it doesn't have spark. Now, when I went to tug on this, I noticed it came out of the, I can't remember what this module is called. I'll have to look it up on the parts diagram just to confirm exactly what it's called. But it's part of the ignition circuit. So I noticed it is not plugged in and not retained. And so now it's plugged in and retained. So we're gonna go ahead and fire this back up. We'll turn on the choke. Turn off choke because we actually ran it choked. Okay, so now I am willing to bet issue resolved. Yep. Okay, so now we just got to button back up. So let's get everything back together. Okay, so I'm gonna start with these since this screw is slightly different. Okay. So now, gently make sure this goes back up in position. Oop. Get them started. I like to just start them because sometimes what can happen is when you tighten one down all the way, it doesn't line up. So at least by starting it, it allows things to shift so you can line it up. So now I gotta push this in place, push this back, and lock this down, doing the same thing. Then I can get these snugged up. Okay, so now that the face is all put back together, we'll reinstall this. We already know it's in the off position because I turned it off. Now I'll put the screw back in there. There we go. We'll put this panel back on. And before we do that, I do want to check oil level. Since it's brand new, I've noticed that sometimes customers don't put in the correct amount of oil. So to check the oil on these, pull the dipstick out all the way, wipe it off, and then you set it on there. You don't screw it down, then you pull it back out. And right now, he's about right here. I like to flip it over, and it's the lowest point on the dipstick. So right here, it's about right at that end, and then it's a little higher on here, and it's just because it's at an angle. And that's why I always go off the lowest end of the dipstick. So I'll stick it back in there. Same thing right there, a little higher up here. So it's good, it's within range. And then reinstall this. These ends go in first. You can push it up. And then screw it in. And notice this isn't right. Push that in there. There we go. There we go. So this is all buttoned back up. Oop. Set all my tools aside. So we're gonna test it again. One last time. So originally came in for this switch not turning off the generator. And what it appears to have been the problem is the connector on the what's it called? Igniter circuit was loose and it wasn't clipped all the way down. We verified that the switch itself works every single time you turn it by doing a continuity test, and therefore we knew the issue was further down. I saw that the wire connected to the harness and then went down, and because I've worked on them quite a few of these before, I remember that little module down below that it connects to, and I found that that was where our issue was. So reconnected it, we tested it, and now we put it all back together. We're gonna test it one last time to confirm everything's good. So I turn it on choke. I'm gonna take it off choke because we did run it on choke before. And if you try to fire it up a few times, when it's on choke and it doesn't start, it could be that it's in a too rich condition. So always turn that off after a few attempts and then try again. So right now it's running, everything checks out on the generator as it should, and it turns off. One last thing I like to do on these generators, just to make absolutely sure that everything's good, is I like to put a load on it and also like to check the voltage and frequency output of the generator. So let me grab a couple tools here. Get this off. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is hook up a little extension here. And then all this is it allows me to see voltage and frequency and load. Whatever I plug into here, I can see a load, and I can see what that load is. And for the load, we're going to use a heat gun, because a heat gun can demand a large amount of power. In this case, it's 1500 watts at full speed. So we're going to hook this up. So everything's hooked up. And well, actually, I'm going to take that off just to make it a little easier so I can show you. So we're going to fire this back up. We're going to turn it on run since we did run it. Turn it on choke. Turn it on the run. There we go. All right, so we're fired up. Everything's good on there. This thing's coming alive. And as you can see, voltage in frequency or within spec. Everything's good. This is an inverter style generator, and so it's going to have a clean sine wave coming out. So it'll regulate that to make sure that it stays at 60 hertz consistently when this engine's running under a load, etc. An open frame style generator, a non-inverter style generator, a low can change the frequency. So that's a whole nother subject. But overall, this is good. So I'm going to switch over to watts, and then I'm going to hook up our heat gun, and then we're going to turn it on high. And then low, and then off. And everything appears to be working great. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this down, and we're good to go. Cool.
Easy.
Yeah, that one actually wasn't bad at all. I was a little worried there's going to be a little bit more, but I started thinking about it, and I remember I had to replace that module. I can't remember what it's called. In fact, I should look it up real quick so I can say what that module is. He's like, what are you doing? What is he? What is it, Ollie? What is it? So let me open up the parts diagram for this. That way I can show it. It's the ignition module right here. And then,
Did you say hi, Taylor?
yeah, so this is the ignition module here. And if you follow it down, you have a low oil sensor, and then you have ignition coil. And so the ignition coil connects to the ignition module here.